Right, the meeting's now resumed. On agenda item 3, the examination process, there is information on that topic set out in the Rule 6, Annex B. I don't propose to repeat what is said there. However, I will ask my colleague, Mr. Maund, to say a few words about the purpose of the preliminary meeting.
Hello again, everyone. The purpose of this preliminary meeting is to assist the examining authority in determining the process that will be followed in conducting the examination. You will see from the agenda that we'll be considering such matters as the proposed deadlines for written submissions and dates of hearings. We will not, however, be discussing the merits or disadvantages of the scheme. These will be dealt with during the examination itself, which won't begin until after this meeting has finally closed. Due to the event being held virtually, this is likely to be Thursday the 15th of April 2021. My colleague Ms Mackay will say a little more on this later on. The points made at this meeting, both today and at part 2 of this meeting if required, together with any written submissions, will all be considered by the examining authority and taken into account in making our procedural decisions, including in respect of the examination timetable, which we will send to you as soon as practicable after the event in a letter under Examination Procedure Rule 8, the Rule 8 letter. If you wish to ask any questions about the examination outside the scope of this meeting, then the case team are the people to approach. Please direct any such inquiries or issues to Michelle Gregory or other members of the Planning Inspectorate case team. I'll now pass back to Ms Mackay.
Thank you, Mr. Maund. Although there is information contained in the Rule 6 letter Appendix B, for those of you who may not be familiar with the examination process, my colleague Mr. Brock will now highlight a few aspects of the examination process that may be relevant.
Thank you, Ms Mackay. Well, we have 3 potential methods through which we can examine the application. There is written evidence. We hold site inspections, both unaccompanied and those in the company of interested parties, and we have hearings. But the system relies primarily upon written evidence, which is supported where required by hearings. Issue-specific hearings are only held where the examining authority considers it is necessary to hear oral representations to ensure adequate examination of an issue, or so that a party has a fair chance to put that party's case. And that is set down in the statute. These are the reasons for an issue-specific hearing. So the panel's initial examination proposals were sent out with our Rule 6 letter of the 23rd of March, which invited you to this meeting. In addition to various deadlines for submission of written information, there's a draft timetable, Annex D, which sets out a number of dates for hearing and for site visits, which are proposed by the examining authority. But I would stress that it is very important for all parties to set out your cases in the written representations made, and please do not simply rely upon attendance at a later hearing. In addition, our written questions will be of great importance, and your replies to us will be of great importance, and the examining authority expects the questions to be answered directly and fully. It will be in everybody's interests to do so. We will consider proposals for an issue-specific hearing on a particular topic on the grounds which I have just mentioned. However, if we do decide to hold an issue-specific hearing on a particular topic, I want to reassure you this does not mean in any way that this issue will not be fully considered by us in preparing our report and our recommendation. Now, a number of interested parties have indicated they wish to speak on this item, and I have the list with me of you. I'm going to ask one or two people to speak, having read what they have said in their submissions in response to our Rule 6 letter. And if there are other people who would like to speak and have points they want to raise which have not been raised, then the time to do that will be when I've gone through the next few people. So first of all, may I ask Mr. Julian Cusack if you are still in the meeting, and if you are, please could you put your microphone and your camera on, and I would like you please just to make the point there which you made in writing, Mr. Cusack. Hello.
Good morning. Thank you for calling me to speak. Yeah, I would. I'm a local resident of Middleton Parish in East Suffolk, about 3 miles from the proposed site, and I want to make sure that the examination process will fully and properly address issues to do with the well-being and mental health of people living in the area, which I believe will be adversely affected by the conversion of an area of outstanding natural beauty into a huge industrial building site. And so that is my key issue, to make sure that that issue gets fully discussed and taken into account in the examination process. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Cusack. You will realise there is an issue. There are open floor hearings when you may want to elaborate on your point. Do make them in writing as well, and we will take into account certainly what you just said when we are considering what issue specific hearings that there should be. So I hope you're reassured that we want to hear from you, personally and from others in this examination. Thank you. May I, if you can close down your camera and your microphone now, please, Mr. Cusack. Can I go to Mr. Jones, please, Gregory Jones, QC.
Hello, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Jones. Now, I have you down for a number of points on this. Could you explain to me briefly the submissions that you'd like to make?
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. In terms of we've set out in our written representations the topics that we're particularly concerned of in respect to my clients, and obviously we'll see how that comes out from the examining panel. But one particular area we identified, sir, and I suppose this is one reason why you're asking me, is that we respectfully suggest there should be a separate topic hearing in relation to the need for and the various consequences of the link road, the proposed link road, and that is something that we have set out in reasons why we respectfully suggest that is capable of forming a separate mini topic within the inquiry process. We also are obviously concerned on the environment, particularly in the light of the proposed amendments, that there should be a separate session on, if possible, compliance with the requirements for environmental impact assessment, and that there should be a focused session on any legal issues that may arise out of that. And then in terms of, and I don't know, sir, if this is the appropriate time to raise it, but insofar as how the process proceeds, we would ask there isn't a hybrid nature. So if it is going to be entirely, and I know, Pete, you've invited, and we'll make representations on that, if people are disadvantaged by being virtual, but our concern is that we have either consecutively or consecutively as the COVID situation unfolds, or concurrently a hybrid of those being in person and some not, or some objections being dealt with in a hybrid way and then later in person. And we we've made representations that we say that that's not desirable, the hybrid nature, that we should either be one thing or the other. And we'll make representations, as you've invited, I think, in writing on whether or not virtual is appropriate. But it's a slightly discrete point that whatever it is, it shouldn't be mixed.
So, Mr. Jones, you are asking that we don't hold a mixed session. That will be a session where we have both people in person and people coming in virtually.
That's right. That's right. And also, you need to make the decision earlier on, and it goes with our other submissions and those of Councillor Fellows about the start time, which I'm not going to repeat. But
thank you.
We don't think we think another advantage of following Councillor Fellows' approach is also that it's less likely that we'll have an evolving and emerging procedure as the external COVID circumstances unfold. And what we're saying is there is, not to quote Hamilton, the musical, but I will, about being in the room. You want to be in the room, and there is a difference between being in the room and not being in the room.
Okay. Thank you. Can I say your points about asking for an issue-specific hearing in relation to the need and consequences of the link road? Those, I mean, the time when we will look at issue-specific hearing request is actually in item 6 of the agenda. I don't mind you raising it now. It's useful to have the advance notice, as it were. But you may want to stay there till stay with us and come back at that point. And if you're not here, if you can't be here, then I have noted the point which you are making.
Thank you. I'll try and be here if I may. Yes.
Thank you very much.
I've covered the points you were expecting of me in our written submissions. If not, please indicate. There is another matter that I've been asked to raise, and it may be it's for any other business. You touched on it, sir, in your introduction as to the different ways in which examination proceeds, written reps, site visits, accompanied and unaccompanied. Could I just put a marker down that when we come for any other business, just the issue of the promoter coming onto land without consent, which has been an issue with my clients. Can I just flag that up for any other business? I won't take time up now on it, but so that we can get the parameters.
I've got that. I mean, if that relates to the accompanied site visits or unaccompanied site visits or any other form of site visit which may be possible in today's age, then please make those when we get to item 6. And if there's stuff left over, then by all means raise it in any other business. Thank you.
I think it's less a formal site visit. It's more the promoters coming on to carry out their own work without having notified owners. I don't want to make a big point of it, but it'd be convenient when we get to any other business that we can just have it flagged up, because those are things, as you'll appreciate, sir, that can cause unnecessary misunderstandings between the parties.
Yeah, thank you for the heads up on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If you could just pop your down and yeah, thank you. Is Anne Westover? I'm going to say, are you in the room, Mrs. Westover? And if so, could you join us in vision and in sound for a few moments? It's just 5 to 12, and we are going to stop at 12. If you're still running, then we'll ask you just to pause. I don't want to rush you, but you're down for this matter. Could you explain to me what the points are that you want to make?
Yes, thank you very much, sir. I would like to speak on behalf of Wickham Market Parish Council and our neighbouring parishes with whom we've been working. That's Pettistry, Hatchiston, Milesford and Campsie Ash. Milesford are also going to speak about wider traffic issues if you invite them later on. So if I could just touch briefly on the traffic issues for Wickham Market, we request that these are fully considered during the examination, possibly under a specific topic, including any scheme which may have been developed by EDF for dealing with the increased volumes of traffic through the village if received by the time of the start of the formal part of this examination. Despite liaising with Suffolk County Council Highways and EDF since December 2019 over the matter of traffic through the village, we have not yet received a scheme which is ready for wider public consultation. We are concerned that we may not be able to effectively consult residents on such a scheme if it's forthcoming, due to the pandemic making it very difficult to display plans in a public place and hold events. We are as yet unsure whether we will have been able to consult residents on any scheme put forward in a timely manner and to fit with the examination timescale. We have requested various things such as speed controls, traffic calming, comprehensive tracking and monitoring of vehicles to the Southern Park and Ride site and to the Sizewell C site, but as yet we have received no firm commitment from EDF on any of these matters. We continue to press them through liaison meetings, but we are increasingly concerned about the timescale in relation to this examination. We would like you to consider the cumulative impacts of traffic coming through our village from future housing developments in the area and other associated business traffic. We request that the process of ensuring that traffic mitigation measures which might be supported locally with caveats are fully considered by the panel in respect to effective control through legal agreements and funding measures and mechanisms. So we particularly want to make sure that the consultation takes place because we are concerned that many residents are still unaware of the impacts that are going to arise from possibly 1,000 cars and vans coming through this village each day to access the site and the ancillary developments. Speeding and vehicle volumes are already problematical at some times of the day, and this, combined with a proposed loss of on-street residential parking, which EDF have currently put forward, will cause insurmountable challenges for many residents. If there's time, I could speak for 2 minutes on the Southern Park and Ride site itself, quickly before, oh, it's getting tight, isn't it?
Thank you. I think I'm going to pause it there, Mrs. Westover. Most of the points which you've made there are actually related to item 4, I think, which is about the initial assessment of principal issues. Let me just summarise what I understood you wanted to say about the examination process. Your concern is you feel the examination ought to be delayed until the examination can be heard not virtually. And you feel that complex issues are more properly debated in that field with documentation available to study. Have I correctly understood what your concern is?
You have. I mean, the parish council have expressed those points. I wasn't particularly expecting to reiterate that because I knew that lots of other people were saying the same thing.
Good.
So when you asked me to speak, I just went straight into our substantive matter. So
that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Thank you very, very much indeed. Good. Well, the timing is lovely. It's now 12 o'clock and we're going to take 1 minute to remember those who have died and everything else which has happened during the coronavirus pandemic. Good. Welcome back, everybody. There's one other person I particularly wanted to ask a question of, and then I see there are a couple of hands up, and I will go to those after this. Mr. James Lawson for the East of England Ambulance NHS Trust. Are you in the room?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. If I was to pop your camera on as well, thank you. Nice to see you this morning, or this afternoon as we are now. Just one thing, the note which I have of what you want to say against this item is about, it says, in the light of resource escalation plan status, you want to talk about the implications arising from meeting examination deadlines, relevant REP summaries, statements of common ground and responses. And you ask for special dispensation for extended timelines. I think that is probably something which we can better deal with in item 6, if you don't mind. But if you do want to say something which relates to examination process, this agenda item, then now's your opportunity.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir, and good afternoon to the examination. Simply to confirm that we're quite content to deal with all those matters under agenda item 6, and Jita Prasad from the service will be addressing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's good. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you later on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we have a couple of hands up now, and if you do want to speak, please just press the hands button, which is there. Patricia Dowding, your hand has been up patiently for some time. Is there anything which you wanted to say to us?
Yes, please. Thank you. I'm just representing myself, but many others who live very close to the site. You talk about one of the 3 potential methods as site inspections. I'd just like to know more, well, I think many of us would, as to what does site inspection mean? Because I have no idea how familiar any of the examiners are with this area, understand the kind of issues that we have as residents or working here. And a visit to the site is obviously essential, but what you need is a visit to the area and have some real familiarity with it to actually understand the issues that we have.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I can answer that for you. First of all, the site visit is an opportunity for us to go and visit parts of the site which we need to understand in order to understand and properly consider the application which is before us. I mean, a lot you can understand without having a site visit, but actually there is, for me, there is no substitute for going to see the site. It helps to cement things in our minds. It helps to make things more relevant and more understandable. The site visit is if you like, it's a time when we gather evidence. It's not a time for evidence or submissions to be made to us, because it's important that we observe all of what we lawyers call the rules of natural justice, and people have a fair chance to say things and to respond to what other people say. So the site visit is not a place for submissions to be made. That we have requested that that interested parties tell us what they think we should go to see. So we'd be grateful if you would make your submission in relation to that. Can you just pause, bear with me for a moment, because my computer is telling me something which I just need to get rid of. Thank you. Yes, please tell us where you think that we should go on an accompanied site inspection, or indeed, I say, under whatever the arrangements are for site inspections. You'll appreciate that they are a little bit fluid in the coronavirus pandemic. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just hope that was heard widely, so that many people can contribute to that, because I don't think you'll understand the issues until you really have seen quite a bit of the area, and in a sense, at least someone on the examining authority is kind of immersed in the area overall.
You should.
Thank you.
Now, let me reassure you, you should understand that we made an unaccompanied site inspection back last August, and I think we spent 3 days in the area. Obviously, we actually can't actually go into the site itself, but we looked at the site from various places, and we went to other locations which seemed to us to be relevant. Some members of the examining authority have been back again for a second site visit on specific things, non-accompanied site inspection. And yes, our letters which we have sent make it clear that we invite representations about where we should go to for an accompanied site inspection. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you pop your hand down as well when you or not go, but when you switch your camera off. Thank you. That'd be great. Mr. Ingram, Mr. Anthony, your hand has been up actually for quite a long time, and it didn't go down, I think, after the last item. Is there something you want to say on this item?
No, forgive me. I didn't realise my hand was still up.
Don't worry, these things happen.
I'll lower it straight away. I apologise.
If you could pop it down, that would be lovely. And Mr. Etheridge, Peter Etheridge, you do have your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much for listening to me. When you visited the site, I understand you visited Sizewell itself and the close area. Did you visit the surrounding villages like Middleton, Eastbridge, Theberton, etc., and Minsmere, of course, so that you got a whole idea of it?
So there's a detailed note of the places which we went to and what the visit covered. We walked through Minsmere in order to get, well, for one of the approaches to the site. We drove through Westleton, stopped there to look at the Fen Meadow recreation site, which is there. We didn't visit all of the villages that you list. If there are ones that you want us to visit, and when you look at our report of the USI, if you see that we didn't go there, then by all means make the point.
I feel that you should visit the area.
Beg your pardon, would you mind making the point in writing to us, or when we get to item 6 later on, which is to deal with the company's site inspections?
Certainly.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to you. Alison Downs, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Alison Downs, Stop Sizewell C. I won't read out the list of names of people I'm representing again. Suffice it to say that Ian Galloway has asked me to add his name to the list of people that I'm speaking on behalf of. So we're on agenda item 3 about the purpose of the preliminary meeting. In the Rule 6 letter on page 2, it says the purpose of preliminary meeting is to enable views to be put forward about the way in which the application is to be examined. Yeah. This strongly suggests to me that decisions about how the examination will be run will be made in the course of the preliminary meeting, or in this case meetings, and I just wanted to bring that up once again to reiterate the point that we have these outstanding questions on which which version of EDF's application we are considering, and to repeat my urging that you consider holding a third part to these preliminary meetings so that all those decisions can be taken within the course of the preliminary meetings and before the examination proper begins. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand your point. Thank you very much. Very good. Now, Mr. Etheridge, would you mind just popping your hand down, please? Unless you wanted to make another point. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to you. Very good. I see no other hands. Oh yes, there's 2 which just popped up. Councillor Fellows, I see you're there.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brock, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Councillor Marianne Fellows speaking on behalf of Albury Town Council. With regard to item 3, as you're aware, we've over the last 5.5 months taken part quite intensively in the DCO for Scottish Power Renewables, East Anglia 1 North and East Anglia 2 in this area. And I wanted to share with you our lessons learned from that, really, to assist. The first one was the examination phase can concertina dramatically towards the end if a level of detail and information is not provided as it should with DCOs, which are supposed to be front loaded. And I really am very nervous because this application seems to lack even more detail and information than the Scottish Power Renewables proposal did. Secondly, regarding accompanied and unaccompanied visits, as you state, it's not the opportunity for us to direct you or to provide information other than to foreshadow where you might want to go and where you might want to stand and look at and try to achieve. But should you go ahead with your proposed timeline, many of these accompanied and unaccompanied visits will be during the COVID-19 restrictions when many people have not returned to their normal activities. So to observe the level of people walking footpaths, for example, it will not be accurate. So where families may come and walk certain paths.
Excuse me, Councillor, I'm sorry, may I interrupt you there? We have got an agenda item 6, when we are going to deal with the ASIs. And I was happy to hear from the earlier participant about it, but okay. you know what the agenda. Please make those points by all means later on.
All right, then I thought we were talking about the methods in which you gain your information.
Indeed we are.
And so I'm sorry if I expressed it inaccurately. What I was trying to say was, if you're relying on unaccompanied visits as a method to gain information, and your timeline is to do this during COVID-19 restrictions, then that may be a false method because you won't be gaining the information you need to make your determination. Okay.
Thank you.
Another method of obtaining information is, of course, third party. And EN1 in 4.5.5, page 50 of the guidance, says that the examining authority could consider taking independent professional advice on design aspects. I'd like to hear from you if you're considering as a method the use of third-party information from independent sources, as especially the design currently is lacking information from the applicant. And then also 4.5.4 says the applicant should demonstrate in the application how they've arrived at the design process and how it's evolved. And I wondered if one method of you examining would be to actually question independent nuclear experts in terms of those aspects. And the last point I wanted to make, thank you, sir, on item 3, is that many of the statutory consultees in their submissions to you already have said that they only want statements of common ground made at deadline 1 and 8. And I know statements of common ground provide a lot of information and are a great assistance to the examining authority in terms of understanding where there's shared agreement on certain matters. Oldborough Town Council will contend that if you only have these at deadline 1 and deadline 8, it doesn't allow town and parish councils or other organisations or the public to understand and comment. And unfortunately, the other lesson learned from the Scottish Power Renewables DCO was that the East Suffolk Council, which is our district level council, did not consult with town or parish councils before they agreed statements of common grounds or agreed the section 111. So in fact, it may be that we need to, in this examination, have statements of common ground with parish and town councils as well. Thank you.
Do I take it, Mrs. Councillor Fellows, that Aldeburgh Town Council would like to participate in a statement of common ground?
I think if the model that East Suffolk has used in Scottish Power Renewables DCO is replicated here, and they do not consult with town and parish councils before making statements of common ground, and they only rely on information from their offices or their own determinations, then I think Aldeburgh Town Council and in fact other local parish and town councils may need to do so, and also may need to go as far as having protective I can't think of the second word.
Protective provisions, I understand what you're saying.
Protective provisions outlined, because we do not feel represented by those agreed at the next tier of authority. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one other question for you. I didn't quite catch. You asked us to consult nuclear experts on some issues. You were referring to 454 of EN1. Could you remind me what those issues were? I didn't get a note.
Well, the general guidance in the EN1 is that you may, at your discretion, seek advice.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I understand the general guidance. My question is, what was the point? What was the particular point which you asked me to consult on? Design of the nuclear installations and infrastructure. So design across the board. Thank you. Yeah, no, I've got that. Thank you very much. I thought it was some other more specialised part of it, but I'm grateful to you. Mr. Brock, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Beach and then Mr. Collett.
Thank you, sir. Tim Beach. I'm a parish councillor, the chair of the parish council in Snape. I just wanted to endorse the comments from Marion Fellows about the issue about common ground. I had similar experience to Councillor Fellows in terms of sitting in on SPR and trying to engage with the district council. And if there is a mechanism for ensuring that we as parishes and towns do get the opportunity to contribute to those section 111s and that common ground, then it would be a really important principle for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Collett, I think you've been waiting there patiently for some time.
That's right. Thank you very much indeed. Alan Collett, a resident of Aldborough. I just wanted to, if I may, just pick up on one point that Marianne Fellows has made, and this is in reference to the site inspections. I was involved slightly in doing some of the preparation work for the site inspections on the wind farm submissions. And I think one point I would request is that not only is it relevant as to whether you carry out your inspections during a COVID lockdown or outside of it, it is also relevant as to whether you undertake them during peak holiday periods, during weekends as opposed to weekdays, where visitor numbers are significantly different, and indeed at the time of day, where mornings with people going to work and coming home in the evening, school times where there are school children walking or cycling to work at some of the surrounding villages. So it's important that I request that you do take a number of visits on board to appreciate the various changing dynamics of the villages, not just around the site itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't go away. I just want to ask you something. Well, first of all, can I just emphasise what I said earlier, that we do ask for your written submissions as to where we should go. Deadline, if you look at the draft, it's obviously the draft at the moment, the drafted timetable, deadline 1 is the point for suggestions on visits to be made. And can I just ask you just to help me as well? You said that kind of time of year, whether on his holiday period or not, is also relevant. Explain to me what you felt was the particular relevance of holiday periods.
Well, the relevance of the holiday period is that there's a significantly larger number of people coming to this area. There's a lot of second homes, there's a lot of holiday accommodation. Therefore, there is a lot of recreation by way of walking the footpaths surrounding the Sandlings, Sizewell and Minsmere. So the timing from that point of view, I think, is important. And then there is a difference between a weekday and a weekend, whether within a holiday period or outside it, because the area does attract a large number of weekend visitors as well. So changing dynamics, as I say, of the number of people coming to the area and using the facilities in the widest sense. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Will you just bear with me a moment? Mr. Collett, I didn't mean to say you didn't have to hang on. To the room in general, would you just bear with me for a tick? Thank you very much indeed. That's very helpful. Very good. Okay. Mr. Hiley, your hand is up. And then we have Josie, just as Josie B. And I think that will bring us to the end of those interested on this matter. Mr. Hiley, hello again.
Hello again. Thank you, sir. I would just like to concur with Councillor Fellowes' remarks. Speaking on behalf of Saxmundham Town Council, I would like to request her if she could send an email round to ourselves and to all other town and parish councils in the area that would be interested, and we can then discuss getting together and doing this as one body. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Josie B.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much. I just wanted to add to the question you just raised to the other speaker about the need to take account of what happens in this part of the world during different times of the year, and to say that you will have heard from some others suggesting the very major hit to employment in tourism related to the figures that EDF has put in terms of job creation. But indeed, in terms of road usage, in terms of walkers, bicyclists, it's extraordinarily different. It's like a different world for 4 or 5 months in the summer, at Christmas time and at school breaks, and that the mitigation measures, if indeed this thing is allowed to go through, will have to be adjusted around those times. And we saw in the past summer, and we'd be all happy to share data with you and surrounding villages. I am with the Parish Council of Walbeswick. The change in numbers that we have collected between what used to be normal time and summers is by a factor of about 10 in terms of traffic flows and things. And we've collected this kind of data, and we would be extremely happy to share it with you to show that if EDF has collected data in March or February, it will be useless for you to use during the rest of the year. Thank you for bringing that up for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't have your surname.
Oh, sorry. It's Josie Bassinet. And I'm down to speak later. I am the chairman of the Walbeswick Parish Council.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you. Very good. If you pop your hand down as well, please, Mrs. Bassinet, that'd be lovely. Very good. I think that deals with all the questions. And so I'm going to return now to Miss Mackay, who is going to move on in the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Now we move on to agenda item 4, the initial assessment of principal issues. We've provided further information in relation to this agenda item in the detailed agenda. My colleague, Mr. Humphrey, will now introduce this item.
Thank you, Ms. Mackay, and good afternoon, everyone. The initial assessment of principal issues that are set out in Annex C of the Rule 6 letter are broadly defined following our assessment of the application documents and their relevant representations. This list was not intended to be exhaustive or set in stone for the duration of the examination. It does not preclude us from amending the list by removing or adding to the principal issues for consideration at a later stage in the process. We will take account all issues and evidence brought before us, and the initial assessment of principal issues will not constrain the examination of other important and relevant matters. This meeting provides an opportunity for interested parties to raise with us additional issues relating to the proposal which they think should or might affect the structure of the examination. This list is not routinely updated as it is only the initial assessment. It is not a comprehensive or exclusive list of all relevant matters. There is no requirement to update this list because the examining authority will examine all issues raised throughout the examination and will have regard to all important and relevant matters during the examination. and when we write our recommendation report to the Secretary of State. In terms of timing, the list was compiled in accordance with paragraph 39 of the Guidance for Examination of Applications for Development Consent 2015 that recommends the examining authority completes its initial assessment of the application within a period of 21 days after the final deadline for receipt of relevant representations. This deadline was the 30th of September 2020. I hope I have clarified the status and timing of the preparation of this list and the purpose of including this item on the agenda today. We are aware that a large number of people have indicated they wish to speak on this item. However, we can perhaps short-circuit a couple of topic areas. We note that a number of parties, including Suffolk County Council, East Suffolk Council, the Environment Agency, and the Marine Management Organisation, suggest that the development's impact on coastal geomorphology should be considered as a key issue in its own right. This is because it could cover potential impacts on coastal processes from the proposed hard and soft coastal sea defences, together with the permanent beach landing facility, the coastal monitoring and mitigation plan, and potentially the temporary beach landing facility. As explained in the detailed agenda, the examining authority is minded to consider that whether or not the proposed changes to the application are accepted, this topic should be given focus as a principal issue in the examination. Likewise, the examining authority understands there is a significant degree of overlap between topic areas where there is potential for community impacts. A number of interested parties have expressed concern that the initial assessment of principal issues has not fully covered all these areas of concern, whether they are a direct or indirect consequence of the proposed development. The examining authority is also minded to consider that the effect on the local community from the proposed development should be considered a principal issue. For that reason, we do not need to hear further from participants today on those matters, but instead any further written submission should be made by procedural deadline B, which will allow us to revisit the topic at part 2 of this meeting, should we consider that to be necessary. I would also say at this point, we do not need to hear further today about the ordering of the agenda item with respect to agenda item 5 concerning the change request. This has already been addressed under agenda item 2. We have a large number of requests from interested parties to speak on this agenda item, and I will invite them to participate. Before I do, I would like to reiterate that all the comments made on the participation form for today's meeting have been published in the examination library. Additionally, we are aware a number of interested parties have expressed similar points on this agenda item. Therefore, in the interest of reducing possible unnecessary repetition further, please refrain from repeating the same points already made by others. One final point before hearing submissions. We note from the published comments provided on the participation forms that a number of respondents make points about the merit of the proposals. This meeting is for us to hear views on the examination, how the examination is to be conducted, and not for expressing views on the merits of the submission. We will consider all such views once the examination starts. The examining authority may have questions on your points, and the applicant will have a chance to respond at the end of this item to any of the points. Now, I have a long list of people who want to talk on this item. I'm going to start running through the organisations, and when I ask, could you please turn on your microphone and speak then, please. So to start with, I'll start with Suffolk County Council, please.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Michael Bedford, Queen's Counsel, representing Suffolk County Council. Thank you, sir. So just some short points, because I know you've seen our written representation. Firstly, obviously, we welcome your Minded To decision as just announced in relation to the coastal geomorphology and community impacts being separate points. In relation to the other matters that we've raised in that representation, so we do hope that the panel, before it makes a decision on those other matters, will particularly take note of the following. Firstly, in relation to the area of outstanding natural beauty, we would emphasise that it's not simply a question of considering a protected landscape, which is how it presently features in your list of principal issues, because as we've made the point, it's a statutory designation which is a wider concept than merely the issue of landscape, as noted in our procedural submission. We also would invite you to note that both of the host authorities, that's to say Suffolk County Council and East Suffolk Council, who've made the same point about the AONB, they have statutory responsibilities for the AONB under Section 85 of the Countryside Rights of Way Act 2000. And I say they both asked for it to be dealt with as a separate principal issue. So too has Natural England in its representation, which it also, although they're not present today, they've obviously indicated to you in writing, and they also have their own statutory responsibilities. So that's in a sense the, as it were, the framework position. But then, so secondly, and this is another reason why we think it deserves to be dealt with as its own principal issue, is the practicality in terms of the breadth of the issue that you've so far identified as a principal issue, which is landscape effects, visual effects and design. That is a very large composite topic with lots of facets within it, and we think it will be unwieldy to try to, as it were, shoehorn all of the issues that are relevant to AONB into that, as it were, one topic. We think that is particularly so in the context of managing any issue-specific hearings, but it will also be so in terms of dealing with written submissions. So that's our main point. So in terms of our other points, obviously you've got the detail of those set out in our written representation, which I'm not going to repeat. The only point perhaps I would like just to emphasise in terms of the issues on the transport strategy is to bring particular emphasis to the importance of looking at deliverability as well as looking at acceptability or suitability of the proposed transport strategy, particularly with reference to freight matters. So deliverability is, we think, an important matter that needs its own careful consideration within the issues of transport. Thank you, sir. Those are our points.
Thank you, Mr. Bedford. So now could I move on to East Suffolk Council, please?
Thank you, sir. My name's Andrew Tate, QC for East Suffolk Council as Local Planning Authority and, of course, Coast Protection Authority. As with Suffolk, we welcome the identification of community impacts, coastal geomorphology as principal issues in their own right. The additional points we'd like to make are as follows. First, in respect of the AONB, we think it should have higher prominence than it has currently as subheading 4 under landscape impact, visual effects and design, which is at present only including the settings of protected landscapes. So we think that should, as it were, come up into the heading, but we think it is important that it remains to be considered in the context, clearly, of landscape impact and visual effects. So that's that first point. Secondly, so far as recreational displacement is concerned, we don't suggest that should be a principal issue, but it should fall under one of the subheadings. I appreciate it's dynamic and they're inclusive and not exhaustive. But we do think that recreational displacement should come under one of the headings, whether it's amenity and recreation or HRA issues. Thirdly, we think under waste, conventional and material resource, the issue of borrow pits should be identified. Doesn't appear at present, and there are visual and noise impacts in relation to that we think are important. Water supply, potable and non-potable water during construction does at the moment come under the heading of waste, conventional and material resource. And it's a question of emphasis, but we think that that should be given greater prominence than merely under that heading, and may indeed deserve identification as a principal issue. We endorse what Mr. Bedford said for Suffolk about the deliverability under traffic and transport. And finally, under the socio-economic heading, we think it would be useful to identify that will include the important issue of skills enhancement. So those are the points we'd like to make at this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. We'll consider those points.
Thank you.
So moving on to the Marine Management Organisation.
Good afternoon, Luella Williamson here, talking on behalf of the Marine Management Organisation. We just wanted to raise that we are content that our comments on this agenda item have been adequately addressed in our written response. We reserve the right to speak here in case the panel had any questions for us at this stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Williamson. Okay, well, moving on to the RSPB, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. Rosie Sutherland on behalf of the RSPB.
Ms. Sutherland, I think you've frozen for me.
Perhaps Ms. Sutherland would like to leave the meeting and rejoin.
Okay. And I will move on for the time being to the East of England Ambulance NHS Trust.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Is it okay for me to proceed?
It is. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Good afternoon to the examining authority, applicant and interested parties. Thank you for the opportunity to address today's preliminary examination meeting. My name is Geeta Prasad and I'm the Deputy Director of Business and Partnerships for East of England Ambulance NHS Trust. We provide accident and emergency services and non-emergency patient transport services across the East of England, including the geographical catchment associated with the proposed Sizewell C project. Known as East, we submitted a Section 56 relevant representation and responded to the applicant's proposed changes consultation in September and December 2020 respectively. Before I continue, I just wanted to double check that this address is not more relevant for agenda item 6 as we were advised earlier. I just wanted to check that, if that's okay, Mr. Humphrey.
What was the topics you wanted to address just now?
We wanted to be able to talk about the deadlines and our request for extensions, or when we will submit our model and our impact models.
Okay, well, it would be relevant later on rather than this is about the principal issues before the examination.
Okay, well, I'm happy to continue at agenda item 6 if that's what we've been advised earlier today.
Okay, that would be fine.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Mr. Humphrey, I could just advise that Rosie Sutherland's rejoined.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Prasad. Could I go back then to Rosie Sutherland of RSPB?
So I am so sorry. I think Teams has been working perfectly for a year, but it has to happen, doesn't it? All I wanted to say, thank you for inviting me back in, was that I'm also here on behalf of Suffolk Wildlife Trust. But you'll be pleased to hear that I don't want to take up any time, and we're very happy, both organisations are happy to rely on our Rule 6 response and the points that we've made in that. But as the lady from the MMO said, if there's any clarification questions, we'd be delighted to assist.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, moving on, we now go to the Environment Agency, please.
Good afternoon. My name's Cameron Sked and I'm representing the Environment Agency. We've provided a written response. However, if I could just briefly summarise some of the issues we've identified, I think we recognise the interrelationship and overlap of the issues that have been identified so far. However, we felt a number could benefit from further prominence as identification. So that includes flood risk modelling, which for some elements of the development have yet to be provided by the applicant. Additionally, the WFD Water Framework Directive impacts of the SSSI crossing would be another matter that we think is particularly important, potentially as there is the potential for the requirement of a Article 4.7 derogation. In addition, we feel that the cooling water system as a whole would benefit from further prominence, given the overlapping issues relating to marine ecology, fisheries, and again, Water Framework Directive compliance. We note that coastal processes have been accepted as a principal issue and welcome that. And I suppose finally, we would endorse the comments previously around sustainable water supply for both potable and non-potable sources to be given further prominence within the issues being considered.
Great. Is that everything from
That's everything from the Environment Agency. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. At this point, we'll move on to, I've got a list of parish councils and town councils. I'd like to run through those, please. Could I start with Anne Westover of Wickham Market Parish Council, please?
Thank you again for letting me speak. Sorry I spoke slightly the wrong order before, but I was a bit thrown. So just to carry on, I talked about the concern we have that traffic through the village is properly examined at the inquiry, and I'm sure it will be, I have confidence. So it really leads into my next point about the location of the Southern Park and Ride site. This is why we're going to have a lot of additional traffic coming through Wickham Market and the surrounding villages. So I speak on behalf of the Parish Council and also Petterstry, Hatcheston, Milesford and Campsie Ash. We request the Southern Park and Ride site, including the suite of plans that are titled Not for Approval, are fully considered at the examination in terms of the proposals and the likely impacts that they will have, and how you will consider the details that are contained therein and assess those impacts, so such as the TEMA zone, traffic incident management area, lighting, buildings, structures, ancillary features, security fences, CCTV and buildings, small buildings, and how these will be fully controlled through the planning process. The drawings that have been submitted for approval are fairly limited in their content. We request that our own recommendations for the provision of a more effective and comprehensive scheme of landscape mitigation, and one which can be retained after the site use is removed, is fully considered at the examination, especially in the zone around the site access to the car park and the B1078B 1116 roundabout. We request finally that there is ample time given, and I've taken note of the deadlines for the submission for site visits, which we would like you to carry out. So we request that time is given at the examination for looking at viewpoints which were not assessed by EDF from public roads and rights of way within the parish of Wickham Market and our neighbouring parishes where views of the site will be significant. Most of these were not assessed. So I think that concludes the points I want to make to elaborate on the topics at the examination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Westover. Thank you very much. So now we'll move to Richard Cooper, please. of Malsford Parish Council.
Thank you, sir. Richard Cooper on behalf of Malsford Parish Council, but we have also, as Ms Westover referred to, been working with neighbouring parishes, including Hatcherston, Wickham Market, Pettistry, Campsie Ash and Little Glenham. In terms of cumulative impact, I know it's referred to as an IAPI. I'm particularly concerned that whilst it may be thoroughly examined in relation to major roads, I'm particularly concerned about cumulative impacts on minor roads in terms of congestion, rat running, and in this area, the potential use of Bentwaters as a storage and distribution centre for Sizewell C. And as Ms Westover referred to Wickham Market, the surrounding villages are going to be impacted by traffic, our use of the village by traffic travelling to the Southern Park and Ride. And I consider that to be a cumulative impact issue. Also under cumulative impact, I want to make sure that air quality, noise and vibration are considered under this heading, as well as being picked up under their specific headings as you've laid out in the IAPIs. I think the other issue that I want to just turn to is the issue of the two village bypass. Now, I know that others in their written representations have requested a full day to be devoted to the two village bypass. It's an important issue for Malsford and Little Glenham because as the proposals currently stand from EDF, they're likely to preclude future improvements to the A12 that would benefit Malsford and Little Glenham. And for that reason, we think significant attention needs to be given to the proposals as they've been put forward by the applicant. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper. Okay, so we'll move on now to Debbie Taylor of Farnham with Stratford St Andrew Parish Council, please.
Thank you very much. I'm the parish clerk for Farnham with Stratford St Andrew. Our parish is made up of two villages. It's sort of adding to what Richard Cooper just said. The parish council feels very strongly that the proposed two village bypass of Farnham and Stratford St Andrew should be considered as an issue specific item because of the importance of the proposition, not just for our two villages, but for other surrounding villages. We don't feel that our suggestions or evidence for a change to the proposed route has been adequately considered or indeed evidenced or addressed by EDF, and their proposed route is going to affect a lot of houses and residents in the village of Farnham, particularly the Grade 2 listed buildings around Farnham Hall. And as I say, this is an important issue which is going to affect a lot of surrounding villages, so we feel it should be properly considered.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Okay, we're moving on now to Councillor Bill Parker, Sudbourne Parish Council.
Good afternoon, thank you. We welcome the community impact has been identified as an overarching area to be looked at. Certainly there are multiple issues that the parish would be concerned about. And so I think that that's very helpful and we'll want to pick up on that. And we will actively input as a parish, although we're not principally in the front line as many others are. We do feel that the individuals and people from the parish may well be impacted by this proposal. Just on one small note is that our submission on the Rule 6 We can't see on the website. It doesn't seem to appear under procedural deadlines I'm sure that there's a perfectly adequate explanation for that, but I'm not sure where it is, and therefore there are others I know who are in the same position. So if that could be looked at, then that'd be useful. But we welcome looking at this by community impact overarching rather than being on individual specifics.
Thank you, Councillor Parker, and I'm sure the case team will have a look at where that submission's gone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, could we now move to Stephen Brett, please, of Theberton Eastbridge Parish Council.
Thank you, sir. I'm having trouble with my camera, but I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you.
There is no specific mention of the impact of the hard and soft coastal defence, temporary and permanent, and beach landing facility. We need to discuss the zone of impact of those facilities.
Okay. Was that all you wanted to say, Mr. Brett?
That's all, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can we move on to Josie Bassinet of Walberswick Parish Council? Pardon my pronunciation.
Yes, you got it all correct. Thank you very much. Just to say, first of all, thank you for the initial comments because those were raised by our parish council along with others. So thank you for acknowledging those already. I would just like to align myself with the other speakers who mentioned the cumulative impacts, including roads and communities which are not highlighted by EDF but will be impacted. And these were many of the things that have been raised over the years and years of consultation but did not get picked up by EDF in their DCO. And I'm not sure whether this is a correct statement to be making, but what I think we're all particularly concerned about, and this is sort of related to the cumulative impacts, is actually the timing of the proposed mitigation measures by EDF. And I don't know how the Planning Inspectorate looks at those and then how they would be implemented, but it's of specific notice that EDF is saying they will do no mitigation prior to beginning operations and prior to beginning construction. And that's obviously extremely worrying. And I would hope that the Planning Inspectorate would look at that because once it begins, if they then decide that, well, they're just not going to do the mitigation, it would seem highly unlikely that a project of this size would be stopped. And we're all looking at these cumulative impacts. We're looking at these park and rides and things, and yet EDF is saying itself in its DCO, it's going to do none of these before it starts work. And I want to really highlight that up for the Planning Inspectorate and to understand how that fits in and how that would be viewed by the Planning Inspectorate in looking at the DCO. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bassinet. Okay, can we now move to Councillor Marianne Fellows, please, of Aldbrook Town Council?
Good afternoon, Mr. Humphrey, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Councillor Marianne Fellows, representing Aldbrook Town Council. There are many others that are going to go into other details, but I'll just highlight the ones that I think haven't been picked up by other people, but with a reserved right to return at the end if there's something else missed. Thank you. So we would like the following to be included as separate principal issues. The first is operational issues, and secondly, decommissioning issues. So this examining authority should not just examine the consequences of construction. And in fact, EN1 4.2.3 says that it should include pre-construction, construction, operational and decommissioning. And there's precedent from the examination with Horizon and South Gloucestershire Council that the decommissioning timeframe should be at least 160 years. Bearing in mind too that Sizewell C spent fuel is probably the last that would be destined to a deep geological facility should one be approved and constructed in the UK. I think also we would need a separate time and a separate issue completely for mitigation and compensation discussions to ensure that there is local benefit and local mitigation, and how this might be managed. For example, who will be the holder of those funds? How will those funds be applied for and delivered? And the timelines, as Councillor Basenet mentioned, there's a lot of examples already with Hinkley Point C where some of the mitigation did not get delivered before an impact. So mitigation shouldn't just be following an impact, it should be in place prior to that particular piece of construction starting that causes the impact. Another topic should be interaction with Sizewell A and Sizewell B issues, particularly around emergency planning and use of shared infrastructure such as sewerage. Sizewell A potential land use. Under marine, I think you've got it under marine ecology. We'd like Albury Town Council as a fishing industry town would like the impact on the fishing industry and recreational use of the beach and the sea and the impact on marine life to be firmed up. It needs to be slightly more robust, we think, under the title of marine ecology. Another area that we think is not sufficiently identified under landscaping is land use in its own right and as a benefit, the benefit of green space to mental health and well-being and our lives today. So you look at the impact visually of the landscape, but what about the impact to artists, to musicians, to everyday life and to people's health and well-being? So I think especially recently, and the government has targets around the maintenance of green space and specifically buffer zones around the site. We've had recent experience of a wood being removed, which was previous mitigation for the Sizewell B spent fuel store. And that's been removed now, post-construction, post-consent, post-construction. Now we've lost it, but it was there originally. So it's about how we mitigate and ensure that there is green buffer for the environment and communities around it. Under policy and need, I think there should be adequate time to discuss the changing political environment, the Bayes review and emerging nuclear debate. And EN1 is terribly out of date. And as you know, the government is planning to review policy going forward. EN1 4.42, applicants are obliged to include in their environmental statement information about main alternatives they've studied and the main reasons for the applicant's choice, taking account of environment, social, economic effects, and where relevant, technical and commercial feasibility. So we think under policy and need, there should be a much wider discussion around siting since EN1, where there may be new alternative sites emerging in the UK. Another particular topic needs to be hydrogen production, because we understand that there may be plans to include as part of Sizewell C a hydrogen production plant. So both the principle and the practicalities of how that will be delivered, constructed, maintained, and safety would be ensured. Under radiological protection, you do mention ILW and spent fuel, but we believe it should be all waste streams, and it should also include all emissions, including steam venting and total residue oxidant and hydrazine, and also the impact, cumulative impact of radiation from what will be an existing generating station Sizewell B and then Sizewell C to the local area. You heard mention from Suffolk Constabulary around the impact on community safety earlier. It is about the changes to the local population, both during construction and then during operation, the impact on antisocial behaviour, but also specifically we would like included the phenomenon which is boom and bust. So during periods of construction or following initial periods of construction, there may be boom or benefit for a local area, but then how do we actually compensate for and plan for the bust that occurred following the building of Sizewell C and is currently being experienced by neighbouring areas? I think you've heard already about the soft and hard defences, coastal defences and coastal demography, but Aldeburgh Town Council would like a specific principal issue hearing around the beach landing facility, because this is one of our main concerns in how that may impact the coastal processes for Aldeburgh. I'll be guided by you, but I think also there may be something around international and EU, since we left the EU now, in terms of the legal framework, the financing model, the fact that EDF Energy is a French company and there's potential co-working with Chinese government and how that all interacts together. And then our final point is around cumulative impact. It should also include displacement that's caused by both the Sizewell C project and other projects occurring, if they do so, overlap in timeline. For example, EN1 North, EN2, and other projects that have already been offered connection agreements at the 400 kV lines in the same area as Sizewell C. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fellows, for all those points. Now would be a suitable time, I think, for us to take lunch. So people should leave their meeting link open, and the case team will be around for 5 minutes if anyone has any questions. But what I would say after lunch, what we'll cover, I've got a few more organisations to go through, then I'll do a hands up of people who want to make additional points, including a period where there'll be a chance for people who don't have the hands up facility to join the meeting and say what they want to say. So with that, the time is now just after 1 o'clock. So the proposal is we adjourn for lunch till 2 o'clock. Thank you very much.